So, what happens when change fails? I talk a lot about how to make change succeed, about how to create successful, sustainable change. But change doesn't always work. It doesn't always succeed. And sometimes when it initially seems successful, it backslides over time because it takes work to make a supposedly completed change stick. A client's project manager recently asked me, so what do I do now? Through no fault of their own or of their team's, the budget for the project had been cut and that project just isn't going to go through to the finish line. To her, it feels like a failure. The team worked hard and invested a lot of commitment and effort. Now what? Okay, let's start by taking a bit of a step back to a high-level view of this. First thing, there are two kinds of failed change. The first kind is what my client's project manager described when an external force comes along and cuts the project short. The second kind is when the change itself fizzles out for whatever various reason. Okay, I've experienced both. Neither are fun. In my client's case, you could argue that if the project had been heading towards success, the budget wouldn't have been cut. In this case, actually not. And furthermore, that's actually not relevant because the reality is the first type of failed change is an external force, no more project. Second type of failed change, unrecoverable problems, no more project. So now what? The first thing you need to notice is that a failed change initiative is a change in and of itself. The project came to a halt, whether a screeching halt or a slow dribble. That is change, right? And no matter what the cause, no matter whether it was an external force or an unrecoverable project problem, the team needs to grieve the loss. They put in time and effort. And let's face it, whether it's healthy or not, we all identify, we have a sense of identity around our work. In this end, without that sense of identity, we wouldn't be engaged or committed to showing up. And yes, I'm setting aside the reality of uncommitted, disengaged team members as a completely separate issue. So, okay. Now it feels like everyone's time, effort, and commitment has basically been poured down the drain. But let's hold on a minute. Has it really just been poured down the drain or maybe not? Because here's the thing, it may be, and please don't hang up on me here, don't click away, it may be trite and cliche to point out that there's always something to be learned, but there's always something to be learned. So the next question is, how do we uncover what's there to be learned? Please don't do a post-mortem. The project may be dead, but calling the review a post-mortem isn't helpful. Instead, it just focuses everyone's attention on the "it's dead" aspect, and that pretty much inevitably leads to finger-pointing and blaming. Words matter, okay? I'm a huge fan of what is called the after-action review. It originated with the military, but it's long since been picked up by organizations like the California Wildfire Fighters, a lot of big companies. Google tells me that Microsoft is one of them, and it's taught at some top business schools. The after-action review asks 4 simple questions. What did you plan to do? What did you expect to happen? Now, key point, only the facts about the plan and the objective are allowed here. What went differently is addressed in the next section, and this, as a facilitator, you're going to need to keep bringing people back on track. They will inevitably wander off in the storyline, right? They will say, well, we were going to do this, but then what happened? No. Stop with, we were going to do this. Once you've got all that out on the table and everybody agrees that this is what was planned, then you can ask the question, okay, what actually did happen? And now you get to describe the actual events. But again, just the facts. No, well, it didn't go the way we planned because. No, just it didn't go the way we planned. Here is how it actually went. So, you described the facts. Now the third question is the because, kind of. Because what you're looking for now is what were the differences. It was supposed to go this way, it actually went this way. what happened. Here's where you really need to pay attention, because some of the differences are going to be unexpected good things that went right, even in a change initiative that failed. We often don't look at the good things when we're reviewing something that went wrong because we're always trying to fix the things that went wrong. But there are almost always, inevitably, some things that went well. And you need to identify them, capture them, document them. You're documenting all this, right? Because then the fourth question is, what will you learn from this and do differently next time? And this is the opportunity to think about those unexpected good things and incorporate them into future projects, as well, of course, as identifying what necessary corrections there might be. With both of these in place, future change initiatives are going to have a much greater chance of success. Plus, identifying the good things can really help your team regain a sense of confidence, and that, the whole thing didn't just go south and they're sitting there in kind of a puddle of gloom, right? Now, important point. Only the people who actually participated in the change under review may participate in the review, because this is all about actual experience, not outside observation. Now, sometimes under some circumstances, a more senior person might be allowed in the room, but they're not allowed to participate. They must be there only as an observer. And this whole thing works because the after-action review is about curiosity, not gloom, doom, and blame. It acknowledges the reality of problems without freaking out about them. It doesn't move on too quickly. It gives intentional space to explore the problems, and again, I am jumping up and down on this because it's important, the positives. Learning should never be only about problems. Now, obviously, it's not a magical cure-all for a failed change, but it does, as I said, help people regain some of the lost confidence. And it informs future change efforts with improvements to the process. I hope I don't need to add here that you can use the after-action review for anything, including a project that's a fantastic success, because it's always helpful to look at any event to see what can be learned and use it in any situation. I know people who use it personally for their own benefit and, of course, for their teams. I'll add one more thing. It's a great process to use if you want to improve or just develop or support psychological safety with your team. It's specifically not about blame, but it is about learning, and everyone is expected to be open and forthcoming with their thoughts and observations and ideas. It's a perfect place to model what real psychological safety can look and feel like. So, with all that said, what's the next project milestone or other event where you could use the after-action review process? Doesn't have to be a finished initiative. Milestones are a great point for an after-action review. So, give it a try. Let me know what you think. And of course, ask any questions you might have in the comments here, because I always come back to answer. Check out some more resources down below in the video description. And obviously, I'd love it if you were to go ahead and subscribe and click the notification bell if you haven't already done that. Take care. Go forward. See what you can find to do practice after action reviews with.